The Galactic Military Academy had been training officers from across the stars for 12,000 years. It sat on a cold moon called Velthros Prime, where the air was thin and the sky was always dark. Thousands of species had walked through its doors, learned the art of war, and returned to their home worlds as commanders and admirals. The Academy was proud of its history, and even prouder of its most famous test, the Decadal Conflict Simulation. This simulation was considered the hardest military challenge in the known galaxy. It created a fake war across 17 star systems with 4 enemy groups fighting each other. There were over 200 billion virtual people living in these systems, and the person taking the test had to manage all of them while also commanding huge fleets of warships. The simulation was so complex that most species needed years just to understand what was happening. The fastest anyone had ever finished it was 3 standard cycles, which was about 3 Earth years. Admiral Zyranth stood in the observation room above the simulation chamber. He was a Morvathi, a species that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a crystal statue. His body clicked and shifted as he moved, and his compound eyes could see in directions that would make a human dizzy. He had served in the Galactic Fleet for 300 years and had seen many strange things. But nothing had prepared him for what he was about to witness. "The humans have arrived," Commander Vexus announced. She was a Calaxian, a 4-eyed amphibian species known for their careful thinking and love of rules. "They are waiting in the preparation area." Admiral Zyranth turned to look through the transparent viewing panel. 5 young humans stood below, talking among themselves as if they were waiting for a meal rather than the most difficult test in galactic history. They wore simple uniforms with the Earth flag on their shoulders. They looked soft and weak compared to most galactic species. No claws, no armor plates, no venom glands. Just smooth skin and those strange forward-facing eyes the predators used for hunting. "Remind me why we are doing this," Commander Vexus said. Her voice carried the tone of someone who thought this was a very bad idea. "The Terran Embassy requested it," Admiral Zyranth replied. "They said our standard first-year tests were too easy for their cadets. They asked for something more challenging. The Decadal simulation is not a first-year test. It is meant for officers with decades of experience." I am aware. But the humans were very insistent. And after what happened at the Battle of Proxima Station, the Council decided it was wise to keep them happy. Commander Vexus made a bubbling sound that meant she disagreed, but would not argue further. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Proxima Station. A single human destroyer had held off an entire pirate fleet for 6 hours until reinforcements arrived. The captain had used tactics that no one had ever seen before, flying his ship in ways that should have torn it apart. When asked how he did it, he simply shrugged and said it was basic stuff they taught at the Academy on Earth. The 5 humans below were led by a young woman with brown hair tied back in a simple style. Her name was Katie Brooks, and she was 22 years old. She came from a place on Earth called Wyoming, which Admiral Zyranth had learned was a region of mountains and plains where humans raised large animals for food. She did not look like a military genius. She looked like someone who should be herding cattle. Not commanding star fleets. Next to her stood Marcus Grant, a tall man with dark skin and an easy smile. He kept looking at the simulation chamber's entrance with an expression that the aliens did not understand. Later, they would learn it was called excitement. The 3rd human was Nina Valdez, a small woman with quick eyes that seemed to notice everything. She had already pulled out a primitive writing tool and was making notes on a small pad. The Morvathi had stopped using such tools 50,000 years ago, but the humans seemed attached to them. Daniel Kim was the quietest of the group. He had black hair and a calm face that gave nothing away. His eyes moved slowly across the room, taking in every detail of the technology around him. He did not speak much, but when he did, the others listened. The last human was Benjamin Cole, the largest of the 5. He had broad shoulders and thick arms, and he was eating something from a small package. Admiral Zarinth's translation device identified it as dried meat from an earth animal called a cow. The human was eating a snack while waiting for the most important test of his life. This, more than anything else, made the Admiral nervous. The simulation begins in 10 units, the automated system announced. Its voice echoed through both the preparation area and the observation room. Participants will have access to standard Galactic Coalition resources. The objective is to achieve complete resolution of the conflict scenario through either military victory or diplomatic conclusion. Katie Brooks looked up at the observation window and waved. It was a small gesture, just a movement of her hand, but something about it made Admiral Zarinth's stomach feel strange. It was the wave of someone who was not worried at all. 10 units, Katie said to her team. That's about an hour in Earth time, right? 53 minutes, Daniel confirmed without checking any device. We should definitely be done before lunch then, Marcus said with a grin. In the observation room, Commander Vexus made a choking sound. Did that human just suggest they would complete the simulation before their midday meal? I believe so, Admiral Zarinth replied slowly. That is impossible. The simulation has never been completed in less than 3 cycles. 3 cycles is over 1,000 Earth days. They cannot possibly think they will finish in less than 1 hour. Perhaps it is a joke. I have read that humans use humor to deal with stressful situations. But as Admiral Zarinth watched the 5 humans walk toward the simulation chamber, he was not so sure. There was something in the way they moved, something in the casual confidence of their steps, that reminded him of predators entering a hunting ground. These were not nervous students facing an impossible challenge. These were creatures who had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them, and they had learned to enjoy the fight. The chamber doors opened, and the humans walked inside. 17 different species had sent representatives to watch what everyone assumed would be a humbling lesson in galactic reality. The humans would try their best, fail miserably, and learn that the galaxy was bigger and more complicated than their young species could handle. That was what everyone expected. What happened next would change the way the entire galaxy thought about the strange, soft creatures from the death world called Earth. The simulation chamber came alive with light and color the moment the doors closed behind the 5 humans. Holographic screens appeared all around them, floating in the air like glowing windows into other worlds. Each screen showed a different part of the fake war. Star maps covered in red and blue markers. Lists of fleet positions, economic reports filled with numbers, and diplomatic messages that scrolled past too fast to read. Katie Brooks stood in the center of the room and looked at everything for exactly 7 seconds. Then she laughed. It was not the nervous laugh of someone who was scared. It was not the confused laugh of someone who did not understand what they were seeing. It was the laugh of recognition. The sound a person makes when they see an old friend or a familiar problem. This is basically the Middle East, but with more tentacles, she said to her team. In the observation room above. Admiral Zarinth turned to his translator device. What is the Middle East? The device hummed for a moment before answering. A region on Earth known for complex conflicts involving multiple groups with overlapping interests, religious differences, and resource competition. The conflicts in this region have lasted for thousands of Earth years. Thousands of years? Commander Vexus repeated. And they are comparing our simulation to this? It appears so. On the chamber floor, Katie was already giving orders. Her voice was calm and clear, and her team responded instantly. Minya, you handle all the talking and deals. Daniel, I need you to find the weak points in their money systems within 3 minutes. Marcus, tell me about their weapons. Ben, Finish eating, and then find out which enemy leaders are the weakest." The commands came so fast that the translation systems had trouble keeping up. The observers watched in confusion as the humans split apart and began working on different screens. They did not follow any of the standard procedures that the Academy taught. They did not start with a careful study of the situation. They did not hold a planning meeting. They just started doing things. Mina Valdez was the first to make the aliens truly uncomfortable. Instead of contacting the enemy faction's official leaders, she opened communication channels with regular citizens living in enemy territory. This broke every rule of diplomatic contact that the galaxy had developed over thousands of years. "What is she doing?" Commander Vexus demanded. "She is talking to civilians." "That is not how negotiations work." "I do not think she cares about how negotiations are supposed to work," Admiral Zyranth observed. Mina's fingers moved across the holographic keyboard faster than any alien in the room had ever seen appendages move. Humans, they were learning, could control their hands with a speed and accuracy that seemed almost mechanical. Within 2 minutes, she had opened 17 different conversation channels with 17 different groups within the enemy coalition. "Found it," Daniel announced suddenly. His voice was flat and certain. "Their entire economy runs through 3 stations in the Kellic system. If we control those stations, all 4 enemy groups lose the ability to pay for their war within 6 cycles. We are not going to destroy them," Katie said. "We are going to take them over." "Marcus, can their defenses stop an attack from multiple directions at once?" Marcus had pulled up the weapons information on his screen. He was frowning, but not because the weapons were dangerous. He looked disappointed, like a hunter who had expected a challenge and found only easy prey. "These weapons are all energy-based with a 2-second charge time between shots. We could fly circles around them." Commander Vexus leaned forward. "Their defense systems are considered highly advanced by galactic standards." "Perhaps by galactic standards," Admiral Zyranth replied quietly. "But we do not know what standards the humans use." Benjamin Cole had finished his dried meat and was now studying the profiles of enemy leaders on his screen. His eyes moved back and forth, reading information about their histories, their families, their weaknesses. After a few minutes, he spoke. "The Vrexian hierarchy has a problem. Their Grand Admiral is old and sick. He has 3 people who want to take his job when he dies, and all 3 of them hate each other. We can use that." "How?" Katie asked. "We kill him. In the simulation, I mean. Then we watch them tear each other apart fighting over who gets to be the new leader." The observation room went completely silent. Every alien present stopped moving. Some stopped breathing. What Benjamin had just suggested was not just unusual. It was unthinkable. The galactic conventions, which had governed warfare for 10,000 years, specifically banned the killing of enemy leaders. It was considered the most dishonorable act possible in civilized conflict. "They cannot be serious," Commander Vexus whispered, but the humans were already making it happen. Marcus found a security hole in the Vrexian flagship's defense systems. Daniel calculated the exact moment when the Grand Admiral would be in the most dangerous position. Nina prepared fake messages that would make each of the 3 successors think the others had ordered the killing. 15 minutes after the simulation started, the Vrexian Grand Admiral was dead. His people did not know who had killed him. All they knew was that one of their own must have done it. Within hours of simulation time, the Vrexian hierarchy was tearing itself apart in a civil war. Admiral Zyranth watched this happen with a feeling he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Not fear of the humans as enemies. Fear of what it meant that such creatures existed in the galaxy. They had just broken one of the oldest rules of civilized warfare, and they had done it as easily as breathing. "This is not how war is supposed to be fought," Commander Vexus said. Her voice was shaking. "No, Admiral Zyrant agreed. But perhaps it is how war is won. On the chamber floor below, the 5 humans continued their work. They did not celebrate. They did not pause to admire what they had done. They simply moved on to the next problem, the next weakness, the next target. They were not fighting the war the way it was supposed to be fought. They were breaking it into pieces. 22 minutes had passed since the simulation began. The observers in the gallery had stopped taking notes. Several had stopped breathing, though for different reasons depending on what kind of bodies they had. One Morvathi official had quietly left the room because he could not handle what he was seeing. The strategic map of the 17 star systems had changed completely. Where there had once been 4 powerful enemy factions working together against the simulation's player, now there was chaos. The Vrexian hierarchy was fighting itself, brother against brother, each successor blaming the others for their leader's death. The Kelix resource stations, which had provided fuel and money for the entire enemy war effort, were now under human control. Marcus had taken the stations without firing a single shot. He had sent a message to their commanders, claiming that a fleet of 200 warships was on its way. The commanders had checked their senses, seen nothing, and surrendered anyway. The fear of what might be coming had been worse than any real attack. The art of war is deception, Daniel said, when asked how this was possible. A general from our planet wrote that about 2,500 years ago, Admiral Zyrant felt his legs weaken slightly. The Morvathi had been developing military thinking for over 50,000 years. They had written millions of books on strategy and tactics. And here was a human telling him that their species had figured out these same ideas in a tiny fraction of that time in the simulation chamber. Nina Valdez was doing something that made even less sense than what Marcus had done. She was talking to moderate leaders in 3 of the 4 enemy factions, and she was offering them something the simulation had never been designed to handle: real peace. I do not understand, Commander Vexus said. The simulation is programmed to make the enemy factions hostile. They should not respond to peaceful offers. Watch, Admiral Zyrant replied. He had given up trying to predict what the humans would do next. On her screen, Nina was typing messages that were simple and direct. She did not use the formal language of galactic diplomacy. She did not make complicated offers with hidden conditions. She just asked the enemy leaders what they actually wanted, and then she offered to help them get it. The computer programs running these fake people do not know how to handle honest conversation, Nina explained to her team. They were built to simulate species who always act selfishly. But real people, even fake ones with good programming, want to believe that peace is possible. You just have to give them a reason to believe. That is not how the simulation works. Commander Vexus protested through the communication channel. Nina looked up at the observation window and smiled. It is now. 31 minutes into the test, the first enemy faction formally surrendered. Their leaders announced that continuing the war made no sense when a genuine path to peace was being offered. They did not surrender to the humans directly. They surrendered to hope. The second faction followed 4 minutes later. Their military commanders had studied Daniel's analysis of the economic situation and realized he was right. Without the Kelix stations providing resources, they could not keep their war machines running for more than a few weeks. Fighting on would only mean more death for no purpose. While all this was happening, Benjamin Cole had been working quietly on something the observers had not noticed. He had been reading everything he could find about the personal histories of important leaders on all sides of the conflict. He was looking for connections that others had missed. I found something interesting, he announced. 3 of the top military commanders on different sides went to the same academy when they were young. They trained together. They were friends before any of this started. Katie turned to look at him. Can you reach them? Already done. They are talking to each other right now for the first time in 4 years. It turns out they all think this war is stupid. They just did not want to be the first one to say it. Admiral Zyranth felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. The humans were not just fighting the war differently. They were not even fighting the war at all. They were reaching past the weapons and the strategies to touch something deeper. The living beings who were actually doing the fighting. Soldiers are not machines, Daniel said, as if reading the Admiral's thoughts. They are people with families and friends and dreams. If you remind them of that, sometimes they stop wanting to kill each other. Commander Vexus had tears running from all 4 of her eyes. Her species cried when they witnessed something that broke their understanding of reality. "This is not how war works," she said. "This is not how anything works. On Earth, we have had thousands of wars," Katie replied. Her voice was calm, but not cold. There was something underneath it, a sadness that suggested she had thought about this for a long time. "We have learned that the best way to end a war is not to win it. The best way is to make everyone realize that fighting is not worth what it costs." 38 minutes into the simulation, 2 enemy factions had surrendered. A third was too busy fighting itself to pose any threat. The war that was supposed to take 10 years to resolve was already mostly over. But there was still one faction left. The Dravishi Collective had not responded to any peace offers. They had not collapsed into internal conflict. They were still out there, still fighting, still dangerous, and they were not going to stop for anything as simple as hope. The Dravishi Collective was the last enemy still standing, and everyone in the observation room knew they would be the hardest to defeat. Unlike the other factions, the Dravishi did not fight for money or territory or power. They fought because their religion told them that combat was sacred. Their priests taught that the only way to reach heaven was through honorable battle. Dying in war was considered a blessing. Refusing to fight was considered a sin worse than death itself. Marcus looked at the information about the Dravishi on his screen and shook his head. Religious extremists. We have dealt with these before. Admiral Zyranth opened the communication channel. The Dravishi have resisted every diplomatic attempt in galactic history. Their beliefs make them immune to normal negotiation. How do you plan to handle them? Katie Brooks did not answer immediately. She walked to the center of the chamber and stared at the holographic image of Dravishi space, where their fleets were still strong and their armies were still ready to fight. After a long moment, she spoke. You do not fight their military when dealing with people like this. You fight their ideas. Ben, what do regular Dravishi people actually believe? Not the priests, not the leaders. The normal people. Benjamin Cole pulled up the cultural database and began reading through it carefully. His eyes moved across screens full of religious texts and historical records. After a few minutes, he found what he was looking for. Their main religion says that fighting in war is the path to spiritual reward. But there is a smaller group within their society that believes something different. This group thinks the highest honor comes from protecting innocent people, not from warfare itself. They believe that true warriors only fight when necessary to save others. That is our angle, Nina said immediately. Her mind was already working on how to use this information. We do not tell them to stop fighting. We tell them that they have already won. The spiritual battle is over. Continuing to fight would not be honorable, because it would only hurt civilians who cannot defend themselves. Daniel looked uncertain. Will that actually work on them? It works on humans, Katie replied. Every holy war in our history eventually ended when the soldiers realized they were not fighting for what they thought they were fighting for. We just need to make that realization happen faster. Marcus was already working on the military side of the problem. His screens showed the positions of Dravishi fleets and the supply lines that kept them fueled and armed. I can make sure their commanders see exactly what has happened to their allies. Their friends have abandoned them. Their resources are cut off. If they keep fighting now, they're not warriors anymore. They are just people killing other people for no reason. That is a harsh thing to say, Daniel observed. War is harsh, Marcus replied without looking up from his work. That is exactly why it needs to end. The final phase of the human strategy was not like anything the observers had seen before. It combined psychological pressure, economic reality, and targeted messages to specific groups within Dravishi society. Nina reached out to the minority religious sect that believed in protecting the innocent, and she found that they were desperate for an excuse to end the conflict. Benjamin identified which war priests were truly devout and which were just using religion to gain personal power. Daniel calculated exactly how long the Dravishi could keep fighting without their allies. The answer was 17 days. But the most important part of the strategy was what Marcus did next. He recorded a message for the Dravishi military commanders. He did not threaten them. He did not mock them. He spoke to them with respect, as one warrior to another. You have fought with honor, his message said. Your enemies have surrendered. Your allies have left you. Your people are dying, and there is nothing left to win. A true warrior knows when a battle is over. A true warrior protects his people by knowing when to stop. The choice is yours. In the observation gallery, Commander Vexus was crying openly now. Tears flowed from all four of her eyes as she watched something she had never believed possible. This is not how the simulation is supposed to go, she whispered. This is not how anything is supposed to go. Admiral Zyronth said nothing. He was too busy watching the Dravishi commanders receive Marcus's message. He could see their faces on the screens, see the conflict in their expressions as they listened to words that challenged everything they believed. They are actually considering it, the Admiral said quietly. They are actually thinking about surrender. 44 minutes had passed since the simulation began. The war that was designed to last 10 years was on the edge of ending. All that remained was for the Dravishi to make their choice. Katie Brooks stood in the center of the chamber, watching the same screens the Admiral was watching. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched at her sides. She understood, perhaps better than anyone in the room, what was happening inside the minds of those Dravishi commanders. She knew what it felt like to believe in something so strongly that you would die for it. And she knew how painful it was to realize that maybe, just maybe, you had been wrong. Come on, she whispered. Make the right choice. And this, the Dravishi Grand Commander appeared on the main screen. He was old, with scars covering most of his visible skin, and his eyes held the weight of decades of war. He looked directly at the camera, knowing that his words would be heard by billions of people across 17 star systems. When he spoke, his voice was tired but steady. The humans speak truth. Our allies are gone. Our resources are gone. Our enemy offers peace with honor. To continue fighting would bring death to our people with no purpose. This is not the way of the true warrior. He paused, and in that pause, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The Dravishi Collective accepts the end of hostilities. May our ancestors forgive us for the lives we have taken, and may our children thank us for the lives we have saved. The screens flashed with confirmation messages. All combat operations were ending. All fleets were standing down. The 10-year war was over. 47 minutes and 12 seconds had passed. The simulation chamber's lights returned to normal, and a pleasant chime announced that the exercise was complete. The holographic screens faded away one by one, leaving the 5 human cadets standing in an empty room. Official completion time, 49 minutes and 17 seconds. Previous record, 3 years, 2 months, and 6 days. Katie Brooks stretched her arms above her head and yawned. I really thought we could do it in under 45 minutes. The Dravashi took longer than I expected. Religious leaders always do, Nina replied. She was already putting her writing tools back in her pocket. They need time to explain everything in terms of their beliefs. It is part of how they think. So what do we do now? Benjamin asked. Lunch? Lunch sounds good. I am pretty hungry. The 5 humans walked toward the chamber exit, talking casually among themselves about where they should eat. They did not celebrate. They did not cheer or pat each other on the back. To them, this had just been another problem to solve, another challenge to overcome. The fact that it was supposed to be the hardest test in galactic history did not seem to matter to them at all. Admiral Zyranth met them at the door. Behind him stood representatives from all 17 species that had been observing, and none of them seemed sure what to say. Their faces showed a mixture of shock, fear, admiration, and something that might have been awe. That was, the Admiral began, and then stopped. He tried again. That was the most disturbing thing I have ever seen in 300 years of military service. Marcus Grant raised an eyebrow. Thank you. I think? You do not understand. I am not insulting you. I am stating a simple fact. Admiral Zyranth's crystal body clicked and shifted as he struggled to express himself. Your species just showed us an approach to conflict that we have never considered in 12,000 years of galactic warfare. You did not fight the war. You broke it apart from the inside. Daniel Kim shrugged. It was such a casual gesture, such a human gesture, that several of the alien observers flinched. Wars are just problems, he said. Problems have solutions. We are pretty good at finding solutions. Pretty good, Commander Vexus repeated. Her voice was hoarse from crying. You solved a simulation designed to take 10 years in less than 1 hour. Your species has been traveling between stars for barely 200 years. How is this even possible? Katie Brooks considered the question carefully before answering. She understood that this moment mattered, that what she said next would shape how the galaxy thought about humanity for generations to come. We grew up on a world that was constantly trying to kill us, she said finally. The weather would kill us. The animals would kill us. The diseases would kill us. Even the plants would kill us if we were not careful. We learned very early that survival was not about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about thinking differently. Every problem is an opportunity if you look at it the right way. And war? Admiral Zyranth asked. What about war? Benjamin Cole spoke up. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. War is the biggest problem of all, which means it is also the biggest opportunity. Most species look at a conflict and see 2 sides fighting each other. We look at it and see 100 different pieces, all connected to each other, all with weak points. Find the right piece and pull it out, and the whole thing falls apart. That is terrifying, one of the alien observers said. Yes, Marcus agreed. But it is also why we are very good at making peace. The same skills that let us destroy a war also let us build something better to replace it. We do not just want to win. We want the fighting to actually stop. Admiral Zyranth was quiet for a long time. The other observers watched him, waiting to see how he would respond. Finally, he did something that no Morvathi had done in front of another species for over 1,000 years. He lowered himself down and bowed his head in respect. The galaxy has much to learn from humanity, he said. Perhaps too much. I will recommend that the Decadal conflict simulation be completely redesigned. It clearly does not represent the challenges that future officers will face. Specifically, it does not prepare them for the challenge of dealing with humanity. Katie Brooks smiled. Is that a compliment? It is a recognition of reality. Your species comes from a death world. You evolved to survive conditions that would kill most other beings. And now you are here among us, solving our problems faster than we can create them. This is either the greatest gift the galaxy has ever received or its most dangerous threat. Why not both? Nina suggested. Her smile was bright and cheerful, as if she had not just helped dismantle a 10-year war in less than an hour. Admiral Zyrinth considered this for a moment. Then, for the first time in his very long life, he laughed. The sound was strange, a clicking and grinding that did not sound like human laughter at all, but the meaning was clear. "Perhaps you are right," he said. "Perhaps humanity is both a gift and a threat. I suppose we will find out which one matters more in the years to come." The 5 human cadets said their goodbyes and walked away down the corridor, still debating where to get lunch. Their voices faded into the distance, leaving the alien observers standing in silence. Commander Vexus turned to Admiral Zyrinth. "What do we do now?" "We learn," the Admiral replied. "We watch. We try to understand how they think. And we hope, for the sake of the entire galaxy, that they continue to use their gifts for peace rather than war." "And if they do not?" Admiral Zyrinth did not answer. He simply watched the 5 humans disappear around a corner, still chatting about food, as if they had not just changed everything. In the days that followed, news of what had happened at the Galactic Military Academy spread across the stars. Some species celebrated the humans as heroes and peacemakers. Others feared them as dangerous predators who could destroy civilizations with their minds alone. Most fell somewhere in between, unsure what to think about the strange soft creatures from the death world called Earth. But everyone remembered this day. The day when 5 young humans walked into the hardest test in galactic history and treated it like a minor inconvenience. The day when the galaxy learned that true strength was not about weapons or armies or even clever strategies. It was about thinking differently. And nobody in the known universe thought quite like humans did.